By the time they were 5 years old, Buck, Libby, and Arlo were expected to help around the farm. Libby and Buck always did their chores, and they even knew how to have fun while doing them. Libby loved tricking Buck into doing her work for her. One time, when she didn't particularly feel like watering the crops, she hid in the high stalks of corn with a mouthful of water. When Buck was within range, she aimed and took her shot, spraying him right in the face. Libby quickly retreated into the fields, laughing hysterically at her shocked brother. Determined to get revenge, Buck ran to the trough and filled his giant mouth with water. Libby peeked out from behind the corn and stuck her tongue out at him, then darted out of sight again. In his attempt to hit her, Buck sprayed the entire field. Libby saw that each stalk had been watered, so she raced out. When Buck finally caught up to her, he hardly had any water left. He wound up only spraying her with a light drizzle. With a big smile on her face, Libby called, "Mama, I finished my watering." She turned to her brother. "Thanks, Buck," she teased. Libby grinned as she watched Buck grudgingly begin his work. But things were very different for Arlo. He struggled to find his place. Being smaller than his siblings didn't help matters, but Arlo's biggest problem was his fear. He was afraid almost all the time and of almost everything, and it held him back, making it difficult for him to accomplish even the simplest of chores. One morning, Mama helped Arlo get ready to do one of his dreaded daily chores, feeding the cluckers. He hated those birds. They made terrible noises, and he was sure they could pierce right through his foot with their sharp hooked beaks. The way they looked at him with their cold, black eyes. It was like they were thinking up different ways to peck him to pieces. Just the thought of them sent a ripple of shivers down his spine. "Can't I do something else, Mama?" Arlo pleaded. Mama smiled as she hung the basket of corn kernels around his neck and gently nudged him with her big tail. "Get going," she chuckled. Reluctantly, Arlo headed off alone. He slowed as he approached the fenced-in coop. As much as he hated all the noises those feathered fiends made, what was even eerier was the present silence. Carefully and quietly he peeked inside, wondering where they were. A sudden rustling in the grass startled him, and he jumped, scattering some feed onto the ground. "Who is that?" Arlo asked, looking toward the sound. He craned his neck through the grass and saw Eustace, a fuzzy little baby tangled up in some weeds. Relieved, Arlo bent down to help her. He peeled off the weeds one by one. As he freed Eustace, a pair of big, old, ugly clawed feet scratched into the ground beside him. "Squawk!" It was Henrietta, Eustace's scary mama. Arlo screamed as Henrietta chased him away. She screeched and squawked, horrifying Arlo with each awful noise. "Ah!" Arlo screamed as he ran for cover. In his panic, Arlo ran to the silo, where Papa, Mama, Libby, and Buck were working. He curled himself up in Papa's tail and closed his eyes. It was his favorite hiding spot. Papa unwound his tail and looked down at Arlo. "Is there a problem?" he asked calmly. "Oh, that?" Arlo said, trying his best to hide his fear. "That was nothing. You know, Henrietta." Papa chuckled. "You're okay." Arlo watched as Papa went back to work. He filled the silo with corn and closed up the opening with a boulder. Then he turned and faced the family. "That should do it. This will keep them rotten critters from stealing our food," he said proudly. Mama gazed lovingly at her husband. "Put your mark on there, Henry," she said. "You earned it." The kids cheered. Then they waited eagerly to see what he would do next. Papa pushed his foot into a thick puddle of mud, making a footprint, and stamped his foot onto a rock. He lifted the printed rock and slid it into place at the top of the silo. "There," he said, smiling. He turned to his wife and said, "You make your mark, Ida." "What for?" she asked. "Oh, nothing really," Henry said sarcastically. There was a smile on his face and in his voice as he continued. "You made the cabin, the fence, and 3 kids." Mama smiled. "I am pretty impressive," she said lightly.